morning, and welcome back to Disability at Work, a quick 10-minute podcast delivering news, insight, and a safe space to learn about disability inclusion. I'm your host, Ashley Sims, and today we're diving into a topic that affects every corner of the digital world, ableism in tech. Joining me today are Jacqueline and Alexa Child, founders of Dateability, the first dating app built specifically for people with disabilities. Welcome, Jacqueline and Alexa.
Thank you so much for having us.
Well, let's get into it. So you recently joined Julie Sowash on our sister podcast, Changing Minds and Changing Lives, where you shared the emotional and personal side of your guys' story. Today, I wanted to zoom in a little bit more and talk a little bit about why a dateability type app was needed on the market. Jacqueline, you were dealing with a lot of ableism in mainstream dating apps. When did it hit you that those experiences weren't just personal, but actually like a reflection of a systemic ableism issue in tech design?
Ooh, I don't even know if I realized how pervasive it was until we launched Dateability, and all these people would tell us how needed it was and how just really overlooked disabled people have been. And prior to creating Dateability, I just was not in touch with my fellow disabled peers, and I didn't know how to be. I didn't know just how to insert myself. And so yeah, I hadn't really been able I was not able to communicate with people and get all these different perspectives until Dateability was launched, and we had people with so many diverse disabilities come to us and say how necessary an app like Dateability is.
Yeah. One of the stats that we talk about all the time is 1 in 4 people in the US has a disability. Yet so many products, apps out there don't have any sort of accessibility built in, or it's treated like an afterthought. Why do you think that is?
That's a good question. I think that listen, being disabled, it can happen to anyone at any point in someone's life. It's not a minority that you are born into. You can be, but not necessarily. So if you're not born disabled, it doesn't mean you're not going to become disabled. In fact, most people age into disability if they don't become disabled earlier. And I think that scares people. I think they'd rather not think about it. I think that there's also this incorrect stereotype that disabled people don't work or they're on government benefits, and so they don't have spending power. And so it doesn't matter if I'm not making my product accessible because they're not going to buy it anyway or spend money or make me money. And so I think it's a combination of those things.
Yeah, and I also will add that I think that accessibility in the tech space, at least, it's very difficult to achieve, and there have not been really, like, for lack of a better word, accessible solutions to easily implement accessible tech, and that it can be a barrier. You have to be very skilled to make sure your tech is accessible. And I'm specifically referring to screen readers. It's really hard. Our engineers are really, really skilled and meticulous, and it is still a very tedious process. And we often make mistakes that we have to fix and improve upon. And also accessibility is always changing too. And so it's never like, oh, you check this and you're done with it. It's this really rigorous, process of always making sure that you maintain accessibility. And I mean, just despite how hard it is, it needs to be done from everyone.
Yeah, absolutely.
I mean, I think like finally the world is coming around to realizing why we need like closed captionings and stuff. But
Yeah.
I mean, as far as like image description goes, we get comments from people all the time saying like, "Hey, you left an AI prompt on the bottom of your post," and I'm like, one, this was not created by AI, but also, no, this is just an image description, and here's what this means. And so it's not mainstream, and
No.
the mainstream, they don't know about it.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay, so you guys decide to build your app. Um, of course, building it is one thing, which I'm sure there were many struggles along that journey. Um, but also funding is a big thing when you're starting a tech company, or building a tech product. And the reality in the startup world is that uh, it's more difficult for disabled founders. So Forbes has reported that disabled founders are up to 400 times less likely to secure VC funding. And Fast Company found that 92% of disabled entrepreneurs say investors overlook disability centered products. Given that landscape, you guys made the decision, um, to go a different route. So you went with securing different angel investors, grants. Can you talk a little bit about that experience, why you went down that route, um, and what kind of led to that decision?
Yeah, the gap is pretty incredible. Also, women get less funding to begin with, so we're a double whammy. We're a women founded and a disabled founded with Jacqueline, and then a disability centered app. And we did try to get that VC money. I really underestimated how difficult it would be for us, but we were often told to shift to a platonic friendship app because intimacy and disability make people uncomfortable, or we were given praise, but like it's just not like the time, because it's not something that they like seem as like like the sexy product. They don't view it that way. And so after being turned down time and time again, we finally found angel investors who really believe in our mission and value what we're doing. And in hindsight, I think that was better. I think that VCs often will pressure companies and startups to push profit over people, and we don't want to do that. Of course, we want to have a successful, profitable company, but we want our users to be first, and we want the product to be quality. And so I'm glad that we don't have to deal with that pressure, but it was staggering to find out like how much discrimination there is in the startup tech investment world.
Yeah, and even like minority driven VCs, they are often forgetting about disability. You'll see a forum and it's like, which minority do you belong to? And it lists everything, and disability is nowhere to be found. And it just adds to the fact that we are the forgotten minority despite being the world's largest.
Yeah, yeah, that's crazy. Um, Despite these barriers, you guys built Dateability with a lot of accessibility in mind, including, I think it's Dateability Deets, which is a function where you can basically disclose your disability neutrally or in a safe way. Um, and you have a bunch of other accessibility features that you've talked about, a little bit earlier. So why do you think more tech designers don't include those features? I mean, we talked a little bit about it earlier, where it's about, it's not super easy, but we've also talked about the fact that it benefits more than just the disability community. A lot of people use captions. So why do you think that's not more mainstream?
I mean, we use captions when anyone like with an Irish accent is on TV. I need subtitles to make sure I'm understanding them correctly.
Yeah,
But
I mean, like captions benefit literally
right.
everyone, but and I think that that is why it has become adopted is into the mainstream, is because non-disabled folks use that. And so I really think it comes from a place of ignorance and not even knowing, one, like what these things are, and two, how people benefit from them. I think that like everyone should definitely use a the voiceover app and then use a screen reader to realize that that is how people rely on their devices. And people, I think, are not interested.
And I think even if there was, an engineer at one of these big tech companies that was willing to implement these accessibility features, there's no one, letting them know why they're important or what is necessary. And so I know with our engineers, they're incredibly dedicated to making Dateability accessible technically, but they might not have known like what exactly that entails until they partnered with us, and we hear from our users and we pass along the messaging. And so that's also, I think part of the problem is that there's no one at these big companies saying, we need to perfect this, our users need this feature, and this is why.
Yeah, which just adds to the point that disabled people deserve to be hired and be involved in these workplaces.
Yeah, for sure. What kind of a difference has it made? Like what kind of feedback have you heard from your community about those accessible features?
Well, people really love like the image description that we have on our photos, and so people say that was a big surprise to have that on a dating app, and that they're grateful for it, and also just knowing that we are committed to it, and that although there will be hurdles along the way, that we work really hard to fix those things has been really well received.
Right. You're never going to achieve perfection right out the gate, but we are, we're working towards it. We're so open to our users' feedback. We're easily reachable. And so I think that really helps. And, disability is so diverse and tech needs are so different among people. And so we want to hear from our users. We encourage that feedback so that we can, try to make Dateability the most accessible dating app.
Yeah, because unfortunately, something that is accessible to one person may make it inaccessible to another person. And so when there's these competing needs, that can be really tricky to navigate, but we do the best we can.
Mm-hmm.
That's awesome. For disabled entrepreneurs out there listening, especially those facing some of those funding barriers, what advice would you give them to stay on course?
I think you have to remind yourself why you're doing this. I think you have to keep going. I think that rejection is redirection, and that you will find the person or the funder that meets your needs. I mean, of course, that sounds like really idealistic, and sometimes people are building things that there isn't a need for. And so I don't know at what point you take a step back and figure out if this is a necessary product, if there's a market need, or if it's just discrimination that's preventing you from getting funding. Our success stories from the app are proof that it is working and it is needed. But I think that we have hard times, but we never gave up. And I think having a team or a co-founder by your side that pushes you is good. I can't imagine doing this alone.
I totally agree.
Awesome. Jacqueline, Alexa, it has been great. Thank you so much for sharing your wisdom with us today. To our listeners, thank you for joining us for Disability at Work. If today's conversation resonated with you, share it, keep the dialogue going, and support disabled creators and founders wherever you can. Until next time.